It was a cold, foggy evening in Dublin when Detective James O'Connor received an urgent call. A renowned art collector, Richard Connolly, had been found dead in his lavish mansion on the outskirts of the city. The scene was strange. Nothing appeared to have been stolen, and there was no sign of forced entry. But Connolly's death was not as simple as it seemed. O'Connor, known for his sharp mind and calm demeanor, arrived at the mansion just as the last of the mist began to settle. He was greeted by the housekeeper, Mrs. Murphy, who was visibly shaken. "It's terrible, Detective. Mr. Connolly was such a kind man." "Who could have done this?" she asked, wringing her hands. "Where is the body?" O'Connor asked, his voice steady. "In the study, sir." Mrs. Murphy hesitated, looking uncomfortable. "I found him there when I came this morning. He was slumped over his desk and there was a strange letter beside him." O'Connor nodded and followed her through the grand hallway to the study. The room was filled with shelves of rare books, valuable paintings, and various antique furniture. At the desk, Connolly's lifeless body was slumped forward, his hand still gripping a pen. A single letter was placed on the desk, its contents facing the detective. O'Connor carefully picked up the letter. It was addressed to Connolly, but written in a peculiar, unfamiliar handwriting. The letter read, "The truth you seek is buried, Mr. Connolly. But beware, for the answer will cost you dearly. Your final days are numbered, and so is your fortune. The Dublin Deception begins now." The words were cryptic, but O'Connor was no stranger to puzzles. He turned the letter over, but found no signature or clue as to who might have written it. It was clear that Connolly had been expecting something, but what? Did Mr. Connolly have any enemies? O'Connor asked, his eyes scanning the room for any other clues. Mrs. Murphy shook her head. "Not that I know of. He was a quiet man, always working. But he had recently been dealing with some new art pieces. Some of them were controversial." O'Connor's interest piqued. "Controversial? How so?" "Well, sir, he had acquired a few pieces from an artist named Callum Byrne. They were unusual, some say even disturbing. But Mr. Connolly insisted they were valuable, even if others disagreed." "Where are these paintings now?" O'Connor inquired, his mind racing. "They're locked in a private gallery upstairs, but no one is allowed to view them," Mrs. Murphy replied. "Mr. Connolly kept them hidden for a reason. He feared someone might try to steal them." "That's where I'll go next," Connor said, his mind already working on the next steps. Upstairs, O'Connor entered the locked gallery and found the paintings that Connolly had kept hidden. The works were dark and unsettling. Twisted faces, ghostly figures, and strange symbols were scattered across the canvas. But there was one painting that stood out. It was of an ancient map of Dublin, but with areas marked in red ink, including the very street Connolly's mansion stood on. O'Connor's eyes narrowed. The map seemed to be a clue, but what did it mean? Was the artist trying to tell him something? And why would Connolly keep such an ominous piece of art? He turned to leave the gallery, but just as he was about to exit, he spotted something unusual on the floor, a small silver key. It was hidden beneath a pile of old newspapers. The key was engraved with the initials R. "See, this must be important," O'Connor muttered to himself. He pocketed the key and left the gallery, heading straight to Connolly's safe in his study. With the key in hand, O'Connor unlocked the safe and found a series of documents inside, including a handwritten note that read, "The deception is not in the art, but in the treasure that lies beneath." O'Connor's pulse quickened. Beneath? What treasure? Was this the real reason Connolly had been killed? Determined to solve the mystery, O'Connor spent the next few hours searching the mansion. He checked every room, but there was no sign of any hidden treasure. The only thing that kept bothering him was the map and how it seemed to point toward a certain area of the city, the old Dublin docks. Without wasting any more time, O'Connor made his way to the docks. The fog was thicker now, and the streets were eerily quiet. As he reached the area marked on the map, he noticed an old, abandoned warehouse. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, O'Connor's flashlight beam illuminated the dim interior. Shelves of old crates and barrels lined the walls, but at the far end of the warehouse, something caught his eye. There, beneath a pile of wooden planks, was a hidden trapdoor. With a sense of urgency, O'Connor opened the trapdoor and descended into the dark basement below. As he stepped inside, his flashlight revealed a large chest covered in dust. It was old, but its brass lock gleamed in the faint light. O'Connor knew he had found it. He took a deep breath and opened the chest. Inside, instead of treasure, was a collection of rare artifacts, each one more valuable than the next. But there was something even more striking, a stack of documents that revealed a secret network of art forgeries run by Connolly himself. Connolly had been involved in a huge art scandal, but he had been planning to expose it before his untimely death. The people behind the forgeries had killed him to protect their operation. With the truth finally uncovered, O'Connor knew that the Dublin Deception had come to an end. But the question remained who had orchestrated it all. As O'Connor walked back to his car, he realized that the case was far from over. But for now, Dublin's fog had swallowed the truth, just like it had swallowed the life of Richard Connolly.